Good morning, 5th grade. We're ready for math lesson 155. And today we're going to start off with some concept cards. First of all, I have some numbers here that I want you to read. First of all, not very large numbers, but then getting larger, and see if you can read them correctly. So I'll show you the number for a little bit. Think about or say how you would read it, and then I will tell you how it should be read. 5,272. 2,436,052. 24,870. 3,124,729,316. 5,3,113,736. Okay, go ahead with these. Intersecting lines, line, rectangle, perpendicular lines, parallel lines, simple closed curve, similar triangles, congruent triangles, polygon, parallelogram, line segment, ray, square, rhombus, trapezoid, pentagon, because it has 5 sides, 6 sides, hexagon, heptagon, octagon. Right here we have the vertex. This is a diagonal. Congruent angles, right angle, acute angle, obtuse angle, straight angle, right triangle, isosceles triangle, angle, point. What is the formula for the area of a square? A equals S times S. The perimeter of a square, P equals 4 times S. What about the perimeter of a rectangle? P equals, in parentheses, 2 times L plus, in parentheses, 2 times W. Area of a rectangle? A equals length times width. And equilateral triangle. Okay, in our lesson today, we are rounding off decimals. So when we're rounding numbers, normally if we round a whole number, we take the place we're rounding to, look at the digit to the right of it, and that's our determining digit. That tells us whether we make the number before it that we are rounding, whether we round it up, or whether we keep it the same. And then all the numbers after what we're rounding are zeros. They turn into zeros, correct? Okay, so the rules for rounding decimals are the same, except that when you round, after you round, after the place that you round, you can just drop the rest of the numbers instead of turning them into zeros. So let's just talk about rounding here a little bit. Let's round the first two numbers to the 10th place and the second two numbers to the 100th place. So as we've done before when we round, let's just draw an arrow to the number that we're rounding. I just thought of this now. I am trying this headpiece because hopefully it will help with volume. So hopefully you can hear me a little better than you could before. I'm not sure if you will be able to or not. You can let me know how it turns out. Anyway, should have started off with that. So let's get back to rounding. We're rounding the 10th place. Let's underline the 100th place because that's our determining digit. Now, just like normal rounding, if this is 5 or more, we round our number up. If this is less than 5, we keep our number the same. With normal whole numbers then, these would be turned into zeros. So here we have a 3, so we keep this an 8. But again, the difference here, the difference with rounding decimals over rounding whole numbers is that instead of turning the numbers after the place you're rounding into zeros, you just erase them. Because remember, in a decimal, the zeros to the far right don't change the value at all. So it's not necessary to make that number a 0, because whether or not that zero is there does not change the value of the number. Okay, let's look at the next number, the next decimal here. We're rounding the 10th place. 7 is our determining digit. Because it's a 7, we're going to round up, which actually rounds this up to the whole number of 1, because if we would round our 9 up, we would get 10, right? So if we make this 10, we'd have a whole number of 1 here, okay? Now remember, having zeros here to the far right of the decimal place doesn't actually change the value of it. So we don't even have to keep them there. This number is just rounded up to 1. Here we're rounding to the 100th place. We are rounding our 6. 2 is our determining digit. Because it's less than 5, we keep this a 6. And if this would be a whole number, we would change this to a 0. But again, we just drop it because a 0 to the far right of a decimal doesn't change the value. So here we're going to round our 4. 9 is our determining digit. We're rounding up to 5 and dropping all the numbers after the place that we rounded. So we have 15 hundredths, 46 hundredths, 1 and 8 tenths. Here I have a few more decimals. So I have 21 hundredths. If you would want to round this to the nearest tenths place, round this number. This is your determining digit. Drop the numbers after the place you're rounding. So because this is a 1, this would be kept a 2, and we drop the 1, which is 2 tenths. If we would be rounding this to the nearest tenths place, we would look at this as our determining digit. That tells us to keep this a 0, drop this, and we're left with 0. It's nothing. Let's leave this one and go on to right here. We're rounding, let's round to the nearest hundredths. So this is the place we're rounding. This is our determining digit. Because it's a 9, we're going to round this up to a 1 and drop everything after it. So that would turn out to be 1 hundredths. Let's do one more here. Let's round this to the nearest hundredths. So this is the number we are rounding. This is our determining digit. It's less than 5, so we're going to keep this a 1. Drop everything after it, and we're left with 1 hundredths. So, rounding a decimal, if the last digit is less than 5, drop it. If the last digit is 5 or more, change the number you're rounding to the next higher number and drop your determining digit. Go ahead and do this rounding in your lesson. You're rounding some to the nearest tenths, some to the nearest hundredths. Let me know if you have any questions in your lesson today. Work carefully, and I will see you in language class.